You are joined by Turner Ogbor, who is of the Labour Party. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, the tribunal says yourself, your party, you were not able to prove your case beyond reasonable doubt, and then there were damages as well.
The tribunal said so, but that is completely against the weight of evidence that was before the tribunal.
How so?
If you look at, this is the petition. If you look at this petition, you will find out graphically the overvoting chart. This is comparing the card reader accreditation figures of INEC and the results that were issued for each polling unit showing overvoting. The tribunal accepted that the card reader was lawful, contrary to what INEC was presenting before the tribunal, that card reader should be declared illegal. It's inconsistent with the Electoral Act. The tribunal disagreed and agreed completely that card reader was lawful. INEC had passed to issue out the manuals, and the card reader report was produced by INEC. INEC came from Abuja to tender the card reader report, having with a certificate of reliance. Having accepted it, the tribunal had no option but to uphold that there was overvoting, because those polling units, as you can see them there, polling unit by polling unit, the overvoting have been established by us. What do you need to prove overvoting? To prove overvoting, all you need is the accreditation record and the results returned for the polling units. We presented all the Form EC8As for each of the polling units and were properly linked to the evidence. We presented the card reader report. The INEC could not give us voters register before the filing of the petition. When INEC finally made available to us a few voters register from 12 local governments, we also brought out the accreditation figures of those voters registers. And it will surprise you to know that over 756 polling units is zero accreditation. Zero. Nil. 00. Nil. Look at it.
But you know,
these things were presented before the tribunal. Now, the accreditation figure in the card reader and the accreditation figure in the voters register ought to be consistent, because the manual voters register is supposed to be a backup voters register for the electronic.
Why then did
what the tribunal did? Having, in fact, you know, that judgment was about 3 hours. For more than 2 hours, almost 45 minutes, everything was on our side. When they started the last issues, they accepted all the principles, upheld the position of the Court of Appeal in Agbaje's case, that card reader is introduced properly to solidify our fragile accreditation process, and it is a proper thing to use to buttress the grounds of corrupt practice and non-compliance. Well, what did they do? The card reader report that was produced by INEC covered the 3,624 polling units in Delta State. But that report, 239 polling units, which is still about 6%, was null, which means the upload from the card readers showed null in INEC server. The tribunal said because of that 239, and that the lady from INEC who tendered this thing said she even lied on the lady, that she said she cannot vouch for the integrity of the card reader. Therefore, they will not give probative value to the card reader. And so the failure to give probative value to the card reader.
Okay, but about the... sorry to butt in. You talked about, you highlighted the card reader case that he upheld in that of Lagos.
Card reader properly.
But some of the text in the judgment for Lagos, the Court of Appeal in that judgment delivered by Justice Obande Fesu says, he declared categorically that the card reader has no life of its own, and as a result cannot be used to determine the result of an election. That is not
correct. What the Court of Appeal held in that case is that you see, in the Electoral Act, Section 138(1) have 5 grounds upon which you can file an election petition.
Was card reader one of them?
You get it. Card reader is not one of those grounds. So the Court of Appeal said you can't use it as a ground, but you can use it as a fact in support of grounds 138(1)(b) and C. So as facts in support of the ground. So when you say there's corrupt practice or there's non-compliance, there's overvoting, you can use it as a fact in support of that ground.
How do you use it? How do you use it as a fact in support of the ground? When
you see, like the card reader is basically for accreditation. It's an electronic accreditation system, which was introduced into our body politics to check the mischief.
Is it recognized by the It's not recognized.
It's recognized
by the Electoral Act.
The Electoral Act empowers INEC.
Yeah, does it recognize card reader or your ballot paper?
Look. The Electoral Act gives INEC power to make manuals and guidelines to give effect to the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. Part of that power is to do manuals and guidelines. Even the voters register accreditation that we take voters register is not found in the Electoral Act. It is found in INEC manual. The accreditation by card reader is also found in the actual INEC manual. That's why Obende says it has its parentage in the manual of election officials.
And it doesn't have a life of its own.
That it has a life.
Yeah,
it has a life from the Constitution, from the Electoral Act. You see, look, the Constitution empowers INEC to make guidelines for its conduct of elections.
You know what I see here? Maybe you help us here. This document here, very voluminous. These are the certified true copies. And you also have been able to...
Voters register accreditation figures.
And that's voter register accreditation figure that on that particular column there, everything is
you have
0.
0.
How come you produced this if this is genuine and you lost out when they said you couldn't prove your case?
This is the ridiculous aspect. In fact, like I told you, we popping champagne yesterday because we know that this judgment will not stand the test of time in the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. Because it is ridiculous that judges will just deliberately make up their minds not to nullify an election and then be fishing for useless excuse.
Were these presented?
They were presented. Yeah, before the court. This is our petition. This is presented. These accreditation figures by card reader was presented, showing that Ogbor alone of PDP, the total accredited voters in Delta State is 715,000.
That's Governor Ogbor.
Governor Ogbor, His Excellency. 715,693 is the total accreditation figure by card reader, but his figures alone is 724,680. So only his votes exceed the total accreditation by INEC record.
Because I'm looking at part of the quotes of that judgment.
Were this brought to the fore?
It was brought to the fore. It's there even in this petition. All is before the court. Yeah, the simple reason why the court said they will not, they refused to attach probative value to the accreditation record presented by INEC. Say because 239 polling units recorded null. How does that affect 6%? How does it affect this? For instance, in polling units where elections were cancelled, how were you expected to get an accreditation there? Because the total valid vote cast in the election, there's over 24,000 votes that are cancelled.
The court says here that you failed to establish substantial evidence while you were prosecuting your case.
That is not correct. What the court is the court. You know that the judgment of the court is the law as at the time when it is given to you go to the higher court. We have provided. What do we need to provide to prove overvoting? We call INEC, subpoenaed INEC. INEC come, bring us the accreditation record of the card reader, showing us pass and fail and total. The INEC brought it and tendered it. It's the make of the document. Then we presented all the INEC from EC8As and we showed them this is what is done with this chart of overvoting. What is required of us? We have discharged the body. We went the extra mile. We brought voters register when we finally got it. Say, look at the accreditation figures of the voters register. Look at the from EC8A figures. This shows that they have just, but the court says no. Card reader is okay, but we will not cancel this election. What will we do? We'll go and appeal. And when we go to appeal, the appeal court will see the facts. If the card reader, if they have said that they did not accept the card reader, to be a different thing. But after accepting the card reader and agreeing that the card reader is lawful, For you to now come and say that you are not going to attach probative value for it. These are data that were front-loaded, uploaded into INEC system from 300,624 officials of INEC.
Well, you recall on that day, on the day of election, the card reader failed in some places. So
in the presidential election, in the governorship and House of Assembly elections, it didn't fail.
Not once.
Not one place it failed, because INEC had several backups in every polling unit.
In the governorship and House of Assembly election, it didn't fail.
It didn't fail.
I'm not sure
INEC
that's
classified the problem. You see, the truth.
No, that's not entirely the case.
No. In Delta State, there's no report of failure.
In Delta State,
there's no report of failure. INEC had, you see, at the presidential election, the high-profile failure of presidents, accreditation process authentication, caused them to say, please do both manual dual accreditation process to save the day. But for the governorship election and House Assembly, they brought out a circular on the 2nd of April that no manual accreditation should be done. It must be a strict card reader election. And where there's a persistent failure, the election should be countermanded to the following day. So if there was failure in your polling unit, you will countermand to the following day. But even if you had such a failure, you get it. And there is evidence, at least it will be in the voters register now. The voter register is the backup. It's a concurrent accreditation record.
So basically,
So the voter register does not represent the figures in the result sheets. The card reader does not represent the accreditation records in the result sheets.
You know, from this document you have here, talking about voting,
yes.
Registered, produced by INEC,
yes.
Local government by local government.
Yes.
The first one we have here is that of Burutu local government area. It shows that the card reader didn't record anything here.
No, those ones are voters register. These are card reader. Those ones are for voters register. Tickings.
Good.
Counting of the tickings.
Good.
In the voters register for accreditation, in the left column, in the vertical column,
you have the polling units here.
Yes.
And you have the number of accredited.
Yes. Each polling unit. And the results.